Modern feminism has turned into a battle. You're either with us or against us. It's actually kind of funny, but there's a witch hunt going on. But now it's not a witch hunt, it's a wizard hunt. I think today's day and age, we're living in a wizard hunt. The hunting of masculinity, of being a man, that's what's being hunted today. In the Salem trials, they were hunting women for being supposedly witches. In today's day and age, they're hunting men for being men. Because of everything that I'm going to say in today's video, well, I'm going to talk about men's problems, and that's not something that you can do in today's society. All the setbacks that currently men are facing. I'm not taking away from all the problems that women have. Women have plenty of problems, but they're not the ones held back in education. They're not the ones held back in job searches because of quotas. I don't want to confuse anybody thinking that I don't believe that women have plenty of problems and plenty of issues. Women have plenty of problems and plenty of issues. I'm going to present to you 7 big major issues that men are facing in today's society that I think are detrimental to the way men interact with each other and with women. I think there's no other way to start this video than by saying the way men are portrayed in movies and TV shows. Basically, the way Hollywood portrays men. It's so funny that I've been watching a lot of Korean and Japanese TV shows lately. It's so different the way they portray men in those parts of the world and the way they portray them in the Western society, in Hollywood, because they're always portrayed as bumbling idiots and buffoons who cannot do anything right, who cannot think for themselves, who cannot be assertive. They cannot be right in anything. They cannot be masculine in a sense. They cannot be strong, intelligent, capable. You get the picture. If it was just in one TV show, I don't think anybody would have a problem with it. The reason why more and more people are standing up against this men hate that's going around is because they feel that it's wrong, that the way they're portraying men in movies and TV shows, that's not the reality of how men behave or how men act or how men are. And if we start teaching our youth that being manly, being a man basically is toxic and bad, and we teach our young women the same thing, that being a man and being manly is bad, that is toxic, then the only thing we're creating is a duplicity inside themselves, because they are men. Those kids that watch those TV shows where they keep hating on men, where the only way they portray men is as being stupid, they are internalizing that they as men are stupid, are bad, are awful, are toxic. That's what we're teaching young men today in movies and in TV shows. And I couldn't just start talking about the labor market or education when I think that a big massive problem of those issues of education, of the labor market, etc., it's kind of the leftovers of all this man-hating that Hollywood is preaching. I think one of the biggest problems that we're facing today is the fatherlessness problem that I think is sweeping the Western world. I'm going to read to you something that is going to blow your mind. 18.3 million children live with a father in the house. That is absolutely insane, where the father is either absent or they don't live with them. That's 1 in 4 US children. This is more US statistics, but it applies broadly to the Western world. In particular, the United States has the highest rate of fatherless families in the world. I think it's crazy. It's like 23%. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And to carry on with some statistics for all of you out there, 41% of children are born to unwed mothers. Now, I don't have a strong opinion on that. If the mother and father are not married but are in a long-term relationship, I'm not one to judge. You do you. I think it's something to be said that 41% of children are born to unwed mothers. And then for women under the age of 30, the demographic that bears 2/3 of children in general, the out-of-wedlock rate increases to 53%. And then let's carry on with these stats because they are absolutely crazy. Children from fatherless homes are far worse in metrics overall, well-being, mental health, behavioral health. These children are often burdened with lower self-esteem than other children. They do not understand why their fathers abandoned them. This leads to many emotional issues down the road, of course. And incarceration, mental health issues like we talked. The list goes on and on and on. I'm going to link this in the description below because it's going to blow your head away. That doesn't stop there. It's actually one of the other points where I was going to talk about is education. The education system is rigged against men. And I can give you a few examples. Brain development in men and women occur at certain different stages. The prefrontal cortex, which is the side of the brain in simple terms that makes you be responsible, think about the consequences of your actions, things of that nature, is the part that makes you do your homework, let's say, instead of wanting to play football. The prefrontal cortex develops in puberty in both men and women, but women biologically go through puberty a bit faster than men. The age-old saying, women mature before men, has an actual biological reason behind it. There is no noticeable differences after puberty in the brain that we know of between men and women. So if we have an education system that rewards good behavior, turning in your essays on time, being compliant and docile, who's going to get the advantage? Of course, women. Also, the education system and schools are not set up for energetic young boys. They disrupt the classes, they're labeled hyperactive. They're taught that their competitiveness is a bad thing. I think this happens in part because the teaching profession is becoming an almost all-female profession. And so male behavior is becoming more and more neutered, let's say. 24% of teachers are men in K through 12, compared to 33% in the 80s, and the numbers are dwindling more and more. Why don't we have quotas in the education system for men? Who argues that having more men in education as role models wouldn't be beneficial for children? Well, look at the study about fatherlessness and the results of men not being around. Wouldn't it be a good idea, a great thing to have quotas for men in education? So even those kids who don't have a father, they at least have positive role models of men in their school. Wouldn't it be a great thing to have quotas for that? Rightfully so, women fought to have the option of an equal education in the 70s, and they achieved it. I completely support that. There was a real gender gap in the 70s between men and women. What nobody expected is that now, 30 years later, that gender gap has reversed, and now men are the ones that are falling behind. Girls are a grade ahead of boys in English. They have catched up in maths. Out of the highest GPA scores, the top 10%, 2/3 are women. Bottom 10%, 2/3 are boys. 10% college enrollment gap in favor of women. Similar size gap when it comes to completing college. The gender gap is wider when it comes to education than it was in the 70s, but now it's the other way around. Men are falling behind. In the 70s, there was a 13% gender gap in favor of men in education. Now, there is a 50% gender gap in favor of women. I don't see any protests done about this. Not one feminist complaining about how the education system is systematically oppressing men. How men have a glass ground to tread through. Let's talk about the labor market. Let me just say that since women have joined the labor force, the average salary of a man doesn't give him the chance of providing for his family. In 1979, the median salary was $1,000. In 2021, $800 in terms of purchasing power. In terms of unemployment, 8 percentage points up since the 70s. 9 million able-bodied young men are not working. That in part, I think, has to do with the shifting in paradigm. Before, if you were a lower class worker, you still had the chance of taking care of your family, providing for your family. That is unthinkable today.
Americans today are actually worse off. You can take my grandparents. My grandmother never worked, despite the fact that my grandfather was a carpenter, and they had 8 children. Could a carpenter, somebody without even a high school diploma, just working in a blue-collar job, support a wife and 8 kids today? Not a chance.
There is less acquisition of skills in the education system. They let you major in basket weaving or lesbian dance theory, but they are not teaching young men that trades will pay very, very good money in the future. They teach them that the patriarchy is suppressing them and that they should choose their own pronouns. Let's talk about purpose. They have no purpose in life. Men need to find the purpose worth living and fighting for. Before that was taught to men, their purpose was by and large their family, their children, their partner, providing, protecting, working to death for their family, dying in wars for them. That, I think, has been a constant throughout history for men. Now they're taught that there is an unlimited number of sex identities that they can choose. And that ties to our last 2 points. They are trying to break the family as much as they can. I think that is clearly apparent. Watch what people do, not what they say they do. And more importantly, watch the consequences of what they do, and you will see their motivation. We clearly stated before that kids not having men around, especially their father, is a really, really bad thing. Yet that is what you constantly hear from these people. We don't need men, what are men useful for, etc. You know the deal. But what it really boils down to is that it is convenient for the elites to break the family nucleus. When women started working, the state was able to tax twice the amount of workers and half the salary of those already working. Look it up, it's going to shock you. If both parents are working, that means that your children spend the majority of their day not with one of the parents that will teach him or her the values and principles that they see fit, but in the education system that they manipulated and warped to benefit their needs. They have your kids as a blank slate so they can inject their twisted ideology, and if you object to that, and don't like what they're being taught, well, guess what? You only see them, let's say 5 hours a day, out of which probably 3 they're watching TV or on their phones. So realistically, only 1 to 2 hours. In the study about fatherless children, they actually say that the quality time that they spend with their fathers is actually like 10 minutes a day, which is absolutely crazy. Like I said, link in the description below. After both you and your partner have been working all day, you don't have the energy to fight the programming and the ideology that the schools are pushing onto your children. That's why it's convenient to break the family nucleus. It's in the best interest of the elites. In my opinion, I can always be wrong, but in my opinion, this is why they're attacking men and masculinity. If you live in a society where men are strong, both mentally, morally, and physically, the first people to stand up against tyranny are men. By making men weak, they pave the way to implementing tyranny. The first step has begun, making men weak. I told you what comes next. Thank you very much for watching, and like always, see you in the next one.